In a crowded weekend of professional wrestling, AEW Forbidden Door will cap off this incredible weekend of professional wrestling with their co-promoted Forbidden Door, involving other promotions like CMLL, Stardom, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Tonight we're going to be breaking it down like a shotgun. I'm going to predict the outcomes of the professional wrestling matches for this huge pay-per-view from AEW. Night of Champions would be on Saturday. That's the WWE PLE. The big story coming out of Night of Champions would be who will be the king and queen of the ring. WWE has an opportunity to steal the weekend away by giving Obafemi the win and crowning him the king of the ring. Will they do that? That remains to be seen. So the AEW has an opportunity to steal the news headlines of the weekend by putting on a phenomenal pay-per-view event, going into their biggest event of the year, All In. The trajectory for All In is, of course, Will Ospreay getting an opportunity at the AEW World Heavyweight Championship and realizing his dream of winning in Wembley Stadium. Is that going to happen? That remains to be seen. So let's get into the Forbidden Door card as it stands today. The main event will be a steel cage match where if Briscoe's team wins, he will earn an AEW World Championship match against Mark Briscoe. Team Mark Briscoe consists of Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, Konosuke Takeshita, and Darby Allin. They will be meeting the team of MJF, who has enlisted Don Callis' family, consisting of Kevin Knight, Kyle Fletcher, Jake Doyle, Kazuchika Okada, and Andre El Idolo. This steel cage match is crowded. It's really crowded. I don't know if they're going to do a double ring or if they're going to do one of those big cages where you can get on the outside and you're still encased in the steel cage. I don't know how they're going to go about this. There's a lot of guys in this steel cage match. I mean, this is cool. This is like the rage in the cage or something, you know? I think it's a foregone conclusion here. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I mean, I like the through line where there's a story for each of these guys. Konosuke Takeshita, Kazuchika Okada. You got Kevin Knight and his feud with Darby Allin. You've got Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly and Orange Cassidy and their feud with the Don Callis family. And, of course, you've got Mark Briscoe and MJF. So I like that each participant, there's a story there, and I enjoy that. There's, like, feuds. There's, like, intertwining feuds in this steel cage match. I quite like that idea. I got Mark Briscoe's team coming out victorious because that's how we get to Mark Briscoe and MJF. Keeps MJF busy until we get to Redemption, where I don't know, but I would venture to guess that I don't think MJF is going to walk away as the AEW World Champion by Redemption. I have a feeling that Kenny Omega is going to be snatching that World Championship from MJF, finally getting a win over MJF, which he has not done thus far in AEW. I digress, though, and I go to Mark Briscoe and MJF being a headline for another big event for AEW, whether it is a televised big event or a pay-per-view. Could be Redemption. Who knows? But I really think that the trajectory there is Kenny Omega and MJF. So I do have Mark Briscoe's team winning, and then Mark Briscoe finally getting that opportunity to get revenge on MJF, which I don't believe he will do. But I've got Mark Briscoe's team coming out victorious in that one. We go with the men's Owen Hart Cup final. The winner receives an AEW World Championship match at All In. It is Swerve Strickland with Prince Nana against Will Ospreay. A lot of history here. With these two, they were friends, and now they're bitter enemies. Will Ospreay has enlisted the aid of the Death Riders to help train him back to 100% because he came off of a neck injury that was given to him by the Death Riders, ironically. It's kind of the story of Karate Kid 3, where Daniel San moved away from Mr. Miyagi, and he kind of went with the Cobra Kai team, led by Terry Silver, who was like trying to give him the dark side in order to get him to be more successful than he's ever been. Will Ospreay is going to be in a situation where he might be losing himself a little bit to this idea of being with the Death Riders, getting a hard edge, learning like a better ground game, more submission moves and stuff, and I think he's going to lose himself in that. What better person than to bring him out would be Kenny Omega, but if Kenny Omega is going to be an opponent, then Will Ospreay has to be cautious. You know, you might look up to Kenny Omega and super respect him, but the idea is that he is fixated and obsessed with winning the championship at All In, and that might cloud his judgment of whether or not Kenny Omega means well. It could be that he believes that Kenny Omega is trying to get in his head and force him to lose that opportunity or lose that World Championship match to Kenny Omega if Kenny Omega is able to defeat MJF further along. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but the point is, I think Hangman Adam Page is going to play a role in speaking to Will Ospreay because there's some similarities there. Hangman Adam Page has lost himself before in his search for the AEW World Championship, and even his looking around and all his friends had left him, if you remember that trajectory for his story there. So I think Hangman Adam Page returning when we get closer to All In and trying to talk Will Ospreay off the ledge, if you will, I think it's going to play a pivotal role, and I believe it all starts here with this match with Swerve Strickland, who has a history with Hangman Adam Page. He has a history with Kenny Omega, and Swerve has lost himself as well. He's gotten a hardened edge since he won the AEW World Championship and his obsession with winning that title back. So I think Will is going to win this match, but I think he's going to have to do it in a way that is similar to the Death Riders. He might even cheat. He might use a screwdriver. He might use a mallet. He might use a tool chest. He might do something crazy, maybe even wrap a bag around his head in order to win. I think that's what we're going to see from Will Ospreay here. We're going to see a hardened-edged Will Ospreay that is going to resort to winning by any means necessary, and really surprising Swerve there, because Swerve is probably going to wonder, like, I didn't think he could do that. I didn't think, goody two-shoes, clean babyface Will Ospreay was going to be capable of something like that. So I would look at that as the start of a darker Will Ospreay that I don't think is going to last very long. I think the idea of it is almost like Superman. If you remember Superman, where it was Clark Kent against Superman in the old Christopher Reeves Superman. I'm dating myself here a little bit. There was an opportunity where Clark Kent didn't want to be Superman anymore because he wanted to be with Lois Lane. Superman split up from him. He got a 5 o'clock shadow, started beating people up at a bar, and then it had to be Clark Kent to go against Superman. He had to beat himself. And I think that's the story that they might be telling with Will Ospreay, where he has to beat himself. And when he looks himself in the mirror and he doesn't recognize himself anymore, and Hangman Page comes and talks to him and inspires him, then I think there's going to be an opportunity for Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega at All In, where Will Ospreay has to decide whether he's going to use those heel tactics, use those Death Rider tactics, or if he's going to beat Kenny Omega decisively. And I think that's the story that they're telling here, and I think it's already begun, but I think a big story beat is going to be when he beats Swerve Strickland. So I've got Will Ospreay coming out victorious there. Speaking of Kenny Omega, he's going to be wrestling Zack Sabre Jr. here. This is going to be an interpromotional match. They've wrestled before in New Japan, but I don't believe they've wrestled in AEW or even in the States. I could be wrong about that, and you guys can fact check me in the comments. I think this is a clash of styles, obviously, but I think the way that Zack Sabre Jr. wrestles, I think it's going to really complement Kenny Omega, and I think they're going to be in for a treat. I think this is going to be a really wonderful match. Maybe a technical masterclass. I think it's going to go back and forth, and I think they're going to give this one some time, but I definitely have Kenny Omega coming out victorious here. I don't think it hurts Zack Sabre Jr. much to lose to Kenny Omega. I think Kenny Omega is going to be trying to get his momentum back to eventually win the AEW World Championship and go on another run. I don't know if that run is going to last very long, I'll be honest with you. But I do believe Kenny Omega is going to be headed to an opportunity to defeat MJF in the not-too-distant future. I think he will win. And I think he will face Will Ospreay, and I think it begins by him getting a win over Zack Sabre Jr. Mercedes-Mone is going to be facing Maya World in the Women's Owen Hart Cup Final. The winner receives an AEW Women's World Championship match at All In. Maya World has had quite an interesting turn of events there. She went from being on Collision, kind of buried in dark matches and maybe even Ring of Honor matches, to now getting an opportunity to defeat Mercedes-Mone after she got a surprising win over Athena in the quarterfinals or semifinals of the Women's Owen Hart Cup tournament. I think you really have something special if you give Maya World the win here. Mercedes-Mone has lost all of her belts. Remember, she was the belt carrier for a long time in AEW, and then, silently and quietly, without very much footage being posted by the AEW, you had to search for it. She lost every single one of her titles except for the Women's Owen Hart Cup title from last year. So it would be interesting if Maya World took the last title from Mercedes-Mone. I think that would be a good part of her story. I can see a world where Maya World, pun intended, gets the victory here. I really do. And I think that's a gutsy call, but I can really see that happening. And I would like to see that happen. I just don't think that there's a lot of emotional investment in Maya World right now, other than the fact that she tragically lost her brother in an accident where he was murdered. So I think aside from that, there's really not much known about Maya World. They can really capitalize on that by giving us a featurette, a couple of vignettes, a couple of opportunities to introduce us to who she actually is. I think that could start if she were to win. And at the very least, you can get a new star in Maya World out of this whole run that she's had in the Women's Owen Hart Cup tournament. Do I think she's going to win, however? You know what? I actually do. I'm going to go with Maya World. I know that's freaking crazy. I think that it makes more sense. Mercedes-Mone getting a win and going after Tekla. I don't know if that really works. I don't know if Tekla's going to stay the champion by All In, but I think she's having an incredible run. She's got her Luna Vachon type of aura about her, and I really like what they've been doing. I think she's really established herself in a real way. So I am going to go with Maya World. I almost said I was going to go with Mercedes-Mone. I almost changed right here on the fly in this video, but yeah, I'm going to go with Maya World. And then speaking of Tekla, she's going to be defending her AEW Women's World Championship against Starlight from Stardom. Stardom's been getting crapped on by Tekla really, really hard here. And so I think the logical step is to give Starlight the AEW Women's World Champions. So the championship. So I'm going to go with Starlight Kid here. I think Starlight Kid comes out victorious over Tekla and wins the AEW World Championship. I think you've got some money in a rematch there. I think it gives AEW Women's World Championship a couple of stints in Japan where Starlight Kid can defend it in Stardom, maybe even in CMLL, potentially even in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I think Tony Khan quite likes Starlight Kid. I think he's spoken very highly of her before, and they've even made mention of it on AEW television. Tekla's even made mention of it on AEW television. And so I think it would be quite the shocker. I think that's something that'll get a lot of people talking. And then Tekla fully snapping, I think, is even better for her character. I don't think she needs to technically beat Starlight Kid in this scenario. I think her losing can only really further her snapping and going into madness. So I've got Starlight Kid coming out victorious. So these last two matches, quite the gutsy predictions. But I'm along for the ride, and I'd like to, I don't want, everybody's probably going to expect Tekla and Mercedes-Mone. I like to live dangerously, so I'm going to go with Starlight Kid coming out victorious here. In a singles match for the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship, newly crowned champion Shota Umino, who just got a victory over Andrade El Idolo in New Japan, will defend against Pac. I like Pac a lot. I really do. Or Pac. I like Pac a lot. But I just don't see him coming out victorious here. Shota Umino has already won the championship. I think that New Japan is in a influx where they're trying to reestablish their roster since it's been gutted and there's been a lot of retirements and whatnot. So I think Shota Umino comes out victorious here. I don't think it really hurts Pac at all, really. And it maybe you can get some another snap of Pac as well. He can lose his mind, or there's always another championship that he can go after. But I got Shota Umino coming out victorious here. It's good to have New Japan get a victory on the pay-per-view, considering that it is a co-promoted event. You want to shine some light on New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I think this is a good opportunity to do that. So I got Shota Umino coming out victorious. Jon Moxley defends the Continental Championship against Bandido. I like Bandido a lot. A lot of people consider him one of the best light heavyweights in professional wrestling, one of the best luchadors in professional wrestling. I like his style. I like his character. I like the vignettes he's done in the Wild Wild West and the OK Corral. This really isn't that tough. I mean, is Bandido still the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion, by the way? You guys let me know if he is down in the comment section below. For the interest of time for this video, I'm not going to search for it. I'm going to assume that he is. I'm going to assume that Jon Moxley gets this victory here because in order for him to fully coach Will Ospreay, then he's got to have the Continental Championship. He's got to look like a dominant wrestler. I think if he loses to Bandido, then he kind of loses that ability to coach Will Ospreay. It's almost like he kind of loses that status. So I think it's going to be a hard-fought match. I think they're going to give this match some time. I don't know if it's going to be a clash of styles necessarily. I think it's going to be a high-impact match, and I think Jon Moxley comes out victorious here. So I've got Jon Moxley retaining. The Young Bucks in a three-way tag team match battle El Sky Team, Mystico and Mascara Dorada, and Unbound Company and Shingo Takagi and Titan. This is going to be a great match. Shingo is kind of misplaced here as far as like what they're going to do, but I think he's going to provide some power, a little power game into this match, which wouldn't hurt anybody. I think it kind of adds to the story of the Young Bucks going back after the AEW World Tag Team Championships. I think you got a match there with Cope and Cage coming up at All In. I think that's the trajectory that I see anyways, and the only way you get there is by the Young Bucks getting a victory. So I see Young Bucks coming out on top. I think this is going to be a match that could potentially steal the show, to be honest with you. These Young Bucks work the best when they work with guys that complement their styles, and I think all of these guys in this match, even Shingo in some regard, will complement the Young Bucks greatly. I think the Young Bucks coming out victorious here and then putting themselves in the running to go after Cope and Cage is the natural progression that we will see going into All In. Speaking of Cope and Cage, they defend their tag team championships against the dogs, the big dogs of David Finlay and Clark Connors. Keep your eyes on Gabe Kidd. I think Gabe Kidd could potentially return. I think he's already returned to New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I find it to be a logical step to have him come out and get in and interfere in this match. Maybe Beth Copeland comes out and gets involved in some way. Who knows what could happen? But definitely Cope and Cage are going to come out victorious in this matchup because, as I stated in the Young Bucks three-way, I think that the Young Bucks and Cope and Cage is going to be the match going into All In. So I've got Cope and Cage coming out victorious in that match. So that is the Forbidden Door card that I see as of today. There's a dark match, I think one dark match involving Divine Dominion, I believe their name is, Megan Bain and Lana Cross, who I quite like very much. They're going to be wrestling Thunder Rosa and Olympia. I think obviously Divine Dominion, they still are going to retain their women's tag team championships because they need to get to Wembley Stadium to defend against Jamie Hayter and Alex Windsor, which I think is going to be the match for All In. And I think that's where Jamie Hayter and Alex Windsor best Divine Dominion. So that's the lineup as it stands. If any new matches are added, I'll probably post something in the community board here at the Wrestling Old Heads portal of pro wrestling so that you guys can see what the prediction of whatever new match that they bring up to the card may be. But as it stands, that is the lineup. As I stated at the beginning of this video, this is an opportunity for AEW to steal the weekend by doing something crazy and doing something gutsy and ballsy that gets the people talking. I believe if they were to do any of that, it would happen in the women's matches that I listed, where Starlight Kid could snatch the title from Tekla and Maya World could shock the world and surprise us with a victory over Mercedesmone. But that's what I think. What do you guys think? You guys let me know down in the comment section below. Who do you think is going to be victorious at Forbidden Door? What's the best event of the weekend? Is it going to be Forbidden Door? Is it going to be TNA Slammiversary? Is it going to be NXT Great American Bash? Or is it going to be Night of Champions? You guys let me know down in the comment section below. Guys, thank you so much for listening. If you like this video and more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join me in the portal of pro wrestling. It's the Wrestling Old Head, you guys. Stay tuned for more.